Yeah. So when David and I were talking about this topic, or what do we want to share this week, one of the things we talked about was we really look at this group and even just business in general as having three key stages. There's the design stage where you've got the idea and you need to create some kind of a product or service around it. And then you've got the launch stage where you're getting that out into the world. And then you've got the growth stage where you want to really scale it. You want to keep growing and you want to keep adding new offerings to your business. And so today, what I thought about was, some of us are in this group are definitely more in that design stage or early in the launch stage, and you're still trying to figure things out along the way. And even if you've had a business for a while, sometimes it's okay, what do I do online now? And so I just thought it would be kind of good to kind of recap some things I know I've learned over the last 5 years of my own business. I spent a lot of money along the way on the wrong things. And David, you could probably attest to that, I would assume too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think we've all jumped in, and they all have the problem of struggling with shiny object syndrome of things.
Sure.
That looks so cool. Oh, I would use that, and you buy it, and you're like 6 months later. Yeah, I haven't implemented that yet. What did I do? Why
Well,
did I?
yeah, and part of that for me was not just what did I do, but it was like I didn't realize I wasn't ready for it.
Mhm.
Like and so I don't think it wasn't a bad tool. It was just premature for me to add it to my toolbox. And so that's been some of those. I had to shift my thinking to go. You know what? While it feels like wasting money, I'm actually learning lessons, and I just call that investment of learning. Like I spent that $100 or $500 or whatever along the way where that I didn't really utilize it, and I'm going, well, but I learned a lesson that may save me thousands down the road. So maybe I'm delusional, but I had to think about it that way, or it'd be really frustrating. So
Yeah.
but today, so I got to thinking, like, so if I was starting my business today, right, if I were starting over or brand new today, what would I do? And so the thought is, while there are many options available and each business has different needs, I just wanted to share some foundational tools to consider. Because when we think about online business, and that's where we're focusing in this group, is building online businesses. Um, there are just some things I don't think that we can really get around, or at least we need to have some version of these things we're going to talk about today in place. And so here's what I want to, what we'll cover today. Here's what I want to talk through. First, I want to look at, website domains, hosting, and builders. I'm not going to go deep in the weeds in this, but I think that some people can kind of get tangled up in where do I start there. I also want to look at email service providers. I know when I started, I didn't even know these things existed. I guess I was a part of them, on other people's lists, but I didn't really understand what they were. The other thing is just wanted to kind of recap the importance of social media. It's not new to any of us probably here in a variety of ways, but we need to look at it a little bit like what's the point of each of these platforms in regards to your business. Payment processors, how do you get paid? I see a lot of people, David, who are kind of making that mistake. Like they could get the website going, they could have the email stuff going, and then somebody who actually wants to pay them, and they're not really ready or set up to accept payment.
Right.
And I think it's just an easy oversight when you're trying to create all the other stuff. So we'll look at just some options there to look at. Also want to look at communication tools. How do you communicate with your audience? How do you communicate with your customers, your clients? Also live streaming software. Once again, it's becoming more and more popular to do live streaming. So what are the options out there that we can start with? And then finally, just if you're a creator, if you have if you want to build courses of any kind, I wanted to just look at some options there as well, because once again, I think many of us in this group, not everybody, I know there are some people, and David, we talked just offline beforehand. Some people have physical products that they're trying to sell, and we want to talk about your experience even with shopping carts, and what does that look like to get people to buy and to get those things distributed. So we'll get there as well, but this has been where I look at if you're a coach, a trainer, a speaker, if you are some kind of a consultant, if you want to do something from an online space where you're helping, whether it's individuals or businesses, these are the key things that I felt like we needed to cover to just remind ourselves, here are the options, here's what we need to look at. And so I want to just jump into each of these and just do a brief overview. Not going to go in deep in anything necessarily. But I want my goal today is to help us all just kind of have thoughts like, do I have the right pieces in place? Do I have things that I maybe even wasting my time on, or even money or energy on. But just want to kind of think of foundational things to get up and running and to advance. So thinking about just simple domain name sites. I know, David, there are some people who they think, okay, I need a website, but I'm not even sure where to go. So some of the popular ones I wanted to just share today, you've got GoDaddy.com, you've got Bluehost.com, you've got Name.com, you got Namecheap.com. And are there others that you're aware of that are more popular and trustworthy, David?
The main one I've used for quite a while is Namecheap.
Okay.
That is the one that I have used for a while, and I mean, at the end of the day, the domain, how you purchase your domain, is probably not a huge difference between the different providers. It really comes down to, like, how do you get the best price on this? How do you, because at the end of the day, it's a commodity at that level. You're buying the domain. Who you buy it from really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is just get the best price, and Namecheap has a pretty good reputation of being on the lower end of the price scale.
Yep. So there you go, folks. If you don't have a domain name yet, even if you don't have a website, but you want to make sure you secure your domain, check out any of these. But like I said, David, I think, Namecheap is something that I have actually been kind of less familiar with until recently, and because I think that GoDaddy and Bluehost, they kind of have the market of really the marketing dollars out there to promote themselves. So so some of those best kept secrets, we want to bring up. So then we switch to web hosting, so when you build a website, you're going to have web hosting. And so once again, you've got GoDaddy, you've got Bluehost, and the other one that I kind of forgot about was DreamHost that I know people have used. Any other hosting that you've used, David, that people could look into, or are these kind of the three core that you're aware of?
Yeah, those are very popular ones. I've actually been using A2 hosting. So it's
Okay.
letter A, the number 2 hosting.com. That's one that I've been using. One of the things I would just add for this is, as we've gone and learned all these things and kind of been through the process of having web hosting on various services, when you're first getting started out, GoDaddy, Bluehost, those types of things, they work fine because you're kind of at the entry point type service. But as you grow and start to develop a little bit more, one of the things I'd really recommend is looking at a what's called a managed web host. The difference being is, like, when you go to like a Bluehost, the server that your website gets put on, even though it's on their server, you're still responsible for it. So if there was ever any malware that gets on the server, if there was ever any hacks that happen against your website, it's your responsibility to secure it. It's, even though it's on their server, they're not owning the problems that can come. And we had Bluehost for a very long time, and it actually became very problematic for us because they were not going to help us when hacks started to come, when problems started to happen with how our hosting was. And then we ended up spending all this extra money on securing the site and adding all of it, and it didn't work perfectly. And then we moved to another managed web host, and the managed web host is, they manage the server. So if it's their server, you're on it, but they're the ones who are going to manage and monitor for security. So if there's any other malware or hacking activity, they're like on the front end, and they are like the shield in front of your server. And when we went that direction, all of our problems went away. Nice. All of the issues with security, hacking, malware, all of that stuff disappeared when we went to a managed web host. So ultimately, it's a little bit more expensive out of the gate, but long term, it's going to save you a lot of headaches.
Well, and that's the good stuff to know, right? Because we don't know that when we get started. Really, there's so many things that you just don't know until you run into. I actually was on today. I had a website issue on one of my sites, and I found out that they said that I was basically just updating a plugin, and the company said, well, don't do that here on your WordPress site, which is what I've got mine on, and we'll talk about in a minute. But they said GoDaddy and doing this update don't work well together, and so they're like, just contact us when you need to update in the future. We'll help you with that. So we don't know those things, right, until we
Right.
have a problem. And we think it's just easy to, to go forward with whatever. But you kind of, those are the live and learn lessons along the way too. So, but no, that's really good to think about and know as well. So, and then we moved to just website builders. And April was already kind of ahead of me a little bit. I see in the comments she already talked about one of them as a hosting option too. But WordPress is very popular. Wix has become very popular. Squarespace has become very popular. Um, you know, David, I know I use WordPress, but I also am watching people use Wix and even Squarespace. Um, there are definitely options for me. WordPress, I think, could be a little cumbersome and a little advanced sometimes for people who are really trying to get started. If you don't have the right kind of builder even within there, like Optimized Press or some of these other options. Do you have any thoughts on that for somebody, especially when I'm a beginner? Like, what I'm afraid of for a lot of people is if you start with a Wix or a Squarespace, is it going to be enough long term? But it may very well be. And they have a lot of drag and drop options to make it easier for design for sure. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I use WordPress for everything that we have ever done. I know Wix and Squarespace are good. To me, I kind of look at Wix and Squarespace as good entry level options for people who really don't. They're just getting started. They're at the level one of learning how all this stuff works. This is all new to them. They're learning how all the pieces fit together. That can be a good option to get started. What you want to make sure of, and on a lot of this stuff, is you want to make sure that you own all your content, because on some of these things that you may be hosting it on their server, and then the content necessarily doesn't always get belonging to you, if you know what I mean. You may not always be in control of your content as much as you would like it to be. So I always caution people a little bit to make sure that, as much as possible, you want to own your own domain. You want to own the content on it. It's going to be yours. And so I mean, from a long-term perspective, I'm very much a WordPress person. And if you need drag and drop builders, I think that's all on which theme you choose and which direction you go in the theme for your website. And there's a lot of good drag and drop builders now that you can choose from. But I just think in terms of overall growth, flexibility, and options for the future, that WordPress is long. I mean, again, Wixes and Squarespace are a good place to start, but long-term WordPress is going to be where you want to build once you get going.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, folks, that this was something I haven't thought about until recently. I mean, I've been blogging for a long time. I do a podcast. I have a lot of content on my websites that I have multiple websites I'm running now. And I'll be real honest, I have not done a great job of taking my content and having it in a separate document from my website. And so it's really hit me like, if my site disappears, if something goes wrong and crashes, I could lose a ton. So I'm in the process right now of making sure that when I write my blogs, that I'm writing them in a separate document and then copying and pasting that into my blog, on my WordPress site. So, David, have you had any insights on that too, about how to make sure you're protecting your content so that, I mean, we know technology glitches happen, right?
Yeah, but there should also be backups being done by your web host. That should be happening. You may want to check with your web host on that, but they should occasionally be running a backup of your site. And we've had to do that from time to time as well. Like something happened to the site, something went wonky and everything's out of whack. And now the site looks like a bowl of spaghetti because everything's all scrambled up. But then you could go back to like a reset point and pull up. Now you may lose content that was posted in the last few days because that got missed, but at least you got the core of the website up. So I would definitely check with your web hosts on that. But yeah, anytime I do a training video, I always save that on like offline as well as putting it up on a website and things like that. So I have all those. So if any of those went down, I could just reload them back into the site.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, we got a great question. Jane Alexander asked, she buys her domain name from WordPress. So she's just wanting to verify I mean, that's a domain as well, right? I mean, you can buy those from WordPress directly.
Yeah, you're all you're doing at that point. If you're buying it, I mean, I wasn't aware that WordPress sold the domains directly, but it would not surprise me that they would. I've never done that, but yeah, all you're doing is you're just buying that URL space. So,
yeah,
www.whateveryouchose.com. That is that's your domain once you pay for it. And so I would, I would think all you're doing at that point is just buying the URL. You're owning that. You're like buying the space to build your website, and then you can add WordPress or Wix or whatever to that domain later as to host everything, and then you start building on top of that with all your content.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so just keep moving here, folks. ClickFunnels was another one I wanted to throw in here, David, because even though it's not what we would necessarily call a traditional website for if you want to have blogs and things like that, ClickFunnels may be all you need. Because if you're selling a product, whether it's digital or even a physical product, you can set up your website as through ClickFunnels, and just run. You can do sell things through it. You could also create a membership portal through that, and we'll talk about that even in a couple of slides over. But ClickFunnels may be the very thing that you need depending on what you're doing. So, David, have you had, I guess not to go too deep in this, but have you had people who only use ClickFunnels and don't even think about a traditional website much for business?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, you can do that. I mean, you can use ClickFunnels to build out an entire website if you want to. I don't really know anyone that's actually used it to be a website builder. ClickFunnels is really, I mean, there's lots of pages that I have built that are on a website that are ClickFunnels pages. Yeah. So you just like transpose them over onto the website. But I've never actually, I mean, the only thing that you would be is if the website is solely a funnel, like if you had, just a book funnel. And like for you, Chris, you have your book funnel and you have the waytogreatness.com. That's your site for your book funnel. And you have all of that on there. And so the whole domain is ClickFunnels. So everything we did there is your ClickFunnels. Right? So essentially we built a website using just ClickFunnels for that one, but the whole website is just the funnel. Right. So to me, my favorite way of using ClickFunnels is to use it for like all the funnel pages and things like that. You can certainly build websites with it, but it's not the primary function of what it was built for.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. But I did want to throw that in there because I do think some people may not, they could start there if they needed to because they just want to get their product or their application for their coaching or, whatever they have, through that, and they can get started pretty quickly, I think, that way too. Mm-hmm. So then we go to email service providers. This is where I told you I didn't even know these things existed when I started my business. I had emails, that I've accumulated from people over the years in my address book. Basically, I didn't understand why do you have an email service provider and the whole spamming issue and how to if you try to send too many out of your personal account, it might hang things up and all this stuff. And so to understand, I started with MailChimp, and I'll just kind of drop these. ConvertKit has now come on the scene, hot and heavy. That's who I use now. MailChimp is where I started. They were the one that I at least knew where to begin. I know you like ActiveCampaign that you're using, and then the other one that has been around for a long time, but I think is getting overlooked a lot by people is Constant Contact. They kind of, to me, they might have even been more of the forerunners of all these. But these are just 4 examples. And even in Kajabi, they have email service providers built into their software and everything. But if you're just looking for an email service provider, these are definitely 4 to look into. I know ConvertKit and MailChimp has a free version to get started and get your email list together. David, does ActiveCampaign have a free version, or is that solely a subscription now?
They have, I don't think it's free at the bottom end, but they have a rather low cost version.
Okay.
So you can get by with a rather inexpensive, or if you're just getting started out and you're just building your list and you don't have, either you don't have a list or your list is very, very small, you can get by for not much money
Yeah.
with Active Campaign. It can be a fairly low cost provider, and like things like MailChimp and ConvertKit, they can be really good entry level options. So I kind of look at that way. Active Campaign is going to give you a little bit more pop. So it's going to give you a little more muscle and capability. Constant Contact was something that we used many, many years ago. And again, I think it's good for some things. I don't know that it's my favorite one for like doing a lot of campaigns and things like that. I think it can be useful. And then if you eventually want to move up to like the super heavy duty hitter level, it is like something like Infusionsoft, but that can get pretty technical. And we used that for years, and I've got a lot of experience with it, but that gets to be a lot more technical. Someone is asking what an email provider is and what service does it provide. You want to cover that, Chris? I'll let you.
No, that's a great, Jan, that's a great question. It's basically, instead of just having your email list like in Gmail or Yahoo or wherever, yours may be, even on mail on your Mac Mail or Outlook, it's basically the service that's helping you build your list. It's pulling all your email lists together, and it's sending it out in a format that is going to get through more in a bulk process. So if you do like a broadcast email to your list and you're trying to build a list and then also communicate with let's say 500, 1,000, 20,000 people, they do that for you. Whereas if you tried to send that out through your own email, you're going to get flagged. You're going to have all sorts of problems most likely, and you're going to have limitations. And so they basically bring, when people opt in to your list because you give them a free report or some kind of a free resource on a landing page, then their email list or their email goes to your email service provider that you can now break up into segments based on their interest, based on what they're wanting to get from you. So it kind of tags them. You can start to automate things. You can schedule things out. And so it's more, once again, trying to bring all your contacts together that people have opted in for your services. Now this gives you a way to communicate. You can do automations. Yeah, I use ConvertKit, and David, one of the things I do like about ConvertKit, they've got a very nice, simple landing page template, builder that you can build, and you can just attach a PDF document, or you can, send links through to web pages or whatever you want to do, collecting your email. It also, you have a very easy automation. So if somebody gives you their email address, then you can tag them based on the thing they opted into. So Jan, it's basically a way for you to operate out of, instead of just your typical email contact list on your computer that you may have for like more of a personal one-on-one connection. So any other insight on that, David, that would be clear?
Yeah, I mean, everybody kind of starts out using something like Gmail or something when they're first starting out, and you start having people that you want to communicate with. You want to start sending out like, "Hey, I'm going to do a training on XYZ on Thursday. Wanted to let everybody know about it." So you start emailing a whole bunch of people on your list. Well, Google quickly catches on and starts slapping your hand. I mean, that's essentially how we all learned. We all tried to start with things like Gmail and start messaging people and saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to let you know about something." Google really doesn't like it when you use Gmail for those purposes. they get out their little ruler and they start smacking your wrist pretty quickly and say, no, you're not allowed to use Gmail for that. You're not allowed to start sending all that out. We consider that spam, so they shut you down. So a way to do that and to be able to email all the people on your list is to use one of these service providers. Then it becomes more legitimate. So you use one of the ones that like Chris has listed here, and that's where like, hey, you want to email everyone on your list about the training that you're doing. Will you send it from ConvertKit or whatever? And now it goes through, because the way ConvertKit processes it and does all that, it gets processed as coming from a bulk mailer, but as people who opted into your list, and it becomes acceptable. So it's a way of building an email list, sending out bulk emails without getting your hand slapped and getting put in Google jail.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, and I'll tell on myself when I first started, because like I said, I started with MailChimp as my very first one, and I was pleased with them for a while. but here's what I did, folks. Don't do this, by the way. I basically took all my contacts that I had in Gmail or wherever they were, and I put them into MailChimp, and then I sent an email out. And I kind of did this backwards, David. I didn't really build a list. I had a list that I kind of said, "Hey, I'm going to start an email list. I'm going to start sending out content or whatever. If you don't want it, just unsubscribe." Now that wouldn't fly, I think, today based on
Yeah.
the rules and regulations. So
You
you
would,
really do need people to opt into your list
yeah.
instead of just adding them and like that.
You'd probably get put in the naughty chair if you did that today.
I know.
Just sit in timeout for 15 minutes.
Exactly. Like I'm glad. Was it the GDPR,
Yeah.
regulations that came
Yeah.
out and that? So yeah. So don't. So that's why, Jan, you want to build a list where people are saying yes to it. They want to be a part of what you're offering, and then the provider itself, like David said, processes it in a way that you don't get in trouble with a Gmail or a Yahoo or another source that you might be emailing from. So. Then we moved on, and I'll just touch on this briefly. I think social media, it seems like a no-brainer in a lot of ways, but I think a lot of times we just we overlook it in a sense from business because we're on it for personal purposes. But when you think about, the power of Facebook, we've talked a lot about Facebook here in this group in particular because that's where we are. But we also, there's the advertising, and we talk about needing a business page to at least do ads. But you can also do Facebook groups like this one, where you're bringing people together that have a common interest, and they want to come together, they want to learn from each other, they want to help each other. So Facebook, is really big on the group side. You can really build a good audience and really invest in people and build relationships there with a specific purpose in mind. LinkedIn. If you were trying to reach more of the business community, the owners, executives, salespeople, that's where LinkedIn. If it's more of a David, I think for me, LinkedIn, I've kind of had to segment. Facebook is more where I focus one part of my business, but LinkedIn, like when I want to reach for executive coaching clients,
Right.
LinkedIn is where I feel like I need to be because I don't feel like a lot of those people are engaging in Facebook as much, but during the day they're more on LinkedIn because it's more part of their business day.
Right.
And so you just need to know where your audience is. Same thing, Instagram. I'm not big into Instagram. I'm starting to dip my toe in the water there a little bit. But some people, if you sell visual or want to do digital pictures and things where people really see what you're offering, that's a great place. And so a lot of people are loving Instagram. These days it's become very popular, especially with younger people. You got Twitter, which is obviously more headline based. It's more like press release style where you're just kind of you're connecting, you're sharing links, you're passing information along back and forth. You got Pinterest, and Pinterest is actually one, David, that I've kind of been hearing more about in the sense that it's the search engine side of it. So some people in their businesses might find Pinterest to be very, very helpful to them, especially if you do arts or crafts or something visual that you want to get people to see and then click through and learn more about. That's really good. And then Medium is another one. I was actually doing some research about this even this morning because I've been hearing more about Medium. And as a writer, as somebody, I blog and I write books, but Medium is actually, I think it was two of the original folks that helped build Twitter started Medium, and it's basically an open source blogging site that you can tag yourself, whether it in your topics of interest and everything. So if you like to write, Medium can be a great blogging platform
Right.
to accent what you're already doing on your own website or other social media. So, so these are just some options, but I guess the biggest thing is see social media as part of your business strategy. And you don't have to do all these. In fact, you shouldn't try to do all these at once. Pick one and go deep and figure it out before you start adding layers on. But don't overlook your social media options and thinking about where your audience is. To me, that's the biggest thing is where is your audience? Are they on Facebook more? Are they on LinkedIn more? Do you find them on Instagram more, Twitter, all these, where are they? And engage them from that business side. So that's just why I wanted to throw that in there because I know we're very familiar with social media these days, but I think sometimes, especially when we're getting started or when we're trying to expand our business, we can often overlook and how to utilize social media strategically.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then going back, we said, payment processors. How do people pay you? Well, you've got options like PayPal, you have Stripe.com, you have Square.com. Um, and, you know, David, I've kind of used all these at some level. Do you, have you found a lot of differences between these and your experiences about what's best or most secure or best service? I mean, anything that stands out to you?
No, I mean, my two that I would use if I was setting it up would be PayPal and Stripe. I think Stripe is more, to me, PayPal is kind of its own little animal. I mean, some people just like to pay with PayPal, and so you kind of have always that option. Okay, pay with credit card or pay with PayPal. Because some people they just feel secure with PayPal. They pay for everything possible with PayPal, and they just run it all through that account. And so I always usually try and balance those two. And then if you want someone just to pay with with a credit card, I usually use Stripe. I just think has more options and it has more flexibility than Square does.
Mhm.
I think Square is really useful if you're in like a room, like,
Yeah.
and you're in an actual physical room, which I know it isn't allowed much anymore. If you're actually in a room speaking to somebody, you can get the little square things that you can slide into your phone,
Yep.
and you can just swipe credit cards right there. So if you had a book that you were selling or something that you can take orders from right there, you can just swipe orders on your phone, like right on that little device right on your phone. And that's where Square becomes really, really
Yeah.
useful. As far as like taking online orders, I would rather use Stripe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I agree. I think that, I have a Square reader because, I mean, once upon a time, right, there was more in-person things going on, but I do find myself using PayPal and Stripe pretty much back and forth now these days based on what I'm doing. So those are just some to think about to make sure that you can get paid. You got to make sure you can get paid, and PayPal, especially, is very popular. So you might just start there and then explore Stripe, if that's the case. But both of them are going to be great options for you. Communication tools, depending on the type of business you have. Obviously, Zoom is become like so popular. David, I heard this here today on a podcast. Back in like March, Zoom had 10 million active users. Today, 360 million.
Yeah,
I wish I owned stock.
yeah. I
You
wish
know,
I invented Zoom.
yeah, well, there's that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I read yesterday that Slack, the
Yep.
software that we use, Slack, I think it was Salesforce.com just bought Slack
Mm,
for $27 billion. And I
wow.
thought, I'm in the wrong business. I need to learn how
Yeah,
to
for real.
software, because if I can write a software program, get it popular, and have someone offer me a few $1 billion to take it off my hands,
Yep,
that would be a great
exactly.
way to go.
Yeah. So Zoom is definitely, and I think the great thing about Zoom, honestly, folks, and I'm going to share a couple other options for video conferencing down the list here, but Zoom has become normalized. I mean, literally back in February and earlier, people would be like, when I talk to a lot of people about Zoom out in public, they'd be like, what are you talking about? And now all of a sudden, Zoom is one of those words of 2020, I think, that we would add too. So Zoom is certainly a great user-friendly platform to use for video conferencing. If you just want telephone calls and you want to do video conference calls, free conference call or freeconferencecallhd.com are great options. I've used those in the past. You can record your calls and even use those if you're going to do audio or even podcast interviews, things like that. If you want to do that, that's a great tool. If you don't want to use video in like a Zoom. Also, Voxer. Voxer is one that somebody who I'm friends with that's in network marketing. She basically runs her business through Zoom and Voxer. And Voxer is how she stays in touch with her people on her team. And so Voxer is more like a almost like a walkie-talkie, back and forth video, or instead of texting back and forth, you're doing voice messages back and forth. But it's also, I've seen people do a great job with using this for their coaching clients. So if you're a coach or a consultant and you want to have verbal communication back and forth without being like on a phone call live with them, Voxer is a great option to communicate. WebEx is kind of that's a Cisco product that's like Zoom, and a lot of businesses are using WebEx as well. And I've used that. I've tried both. I don't find a lot of difference in a lot of ways. Zoom is, I think, more of a stripped down, simpler version. WebEx, it looks more, I don't know, it just looks more technical in some ways, but it's very capable in the same way. Same thing, GoToMeeting, whether it's having meetings like that or webinars, that's been around for quite a while. And then, as David mentioned, Slack.com. You may not be as familiar with that unless you've been working on a team and you've used this. But Slack is a great tool to use for. You can actually make calls through it and have video calls or audio calls, but you can also just message back and forth. You can add files. And so it depends on what your need is. But if you have a team, like I just recently added a virtual assistant to help me with some things. And so, she and I are communicating back and forth on Slack, and I love it. It's not time bound. It's whenever either one of us can get back to the message, we do that and we communicate that way. So Slack has definitely become popular. Obviously, it's worth billions of dollars
Yeah.
for some reason, right, David?
Yeah, well, they spent a lot of money on it, and I was like, "Oh, good grief."
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So these are just some options for some communication tools, whether they be with your team or whether they be with your clients and customers. But all these things are getting more normalized. And so when you think about your online business, once again, you don't have to have all these, but figure out what works best for you, what works best for those you're trying to serve and work with. Live streaming tools. You've got StreamYard, which is what we're on right now. I really like StreamYard. I feel like it's very easy to use. Before StreamYard, there was Be Live that was kind of popularized. I never really jumped into that as much. I'll just say that the differences when I looked in to kind of compare, StreamYard allows you to have more people on at one time than Be Live. So if we wanted to have up to 6 people on this call right now, we could have them in the studio. Be Live doesn't give you as many for the free version. And so they both have paid versions, but Be Live, definitely has its strengths as well. But StreamYard is definitely, I'm seeing it take off a lot online. So, and then if you just want to even start just kind of very simple, just do Facebook Live. Facebook Live, Facebook's trying to make things easy as well, and so you can bring on a guest and you can do some things there, just even if you don't even have a secondary service like StreamYard or Be Live. So, but once again, live streaming, think about that. Is that helpful to get your word out for your business? Is it helpful for you to connect with your audience? It may not be the right thing for you. It may be great for you, but be thinking about that. And then if you want to do courses of any kind, there's just several options here. Thinkific is out there, Teachable. Um, ClickFunnels actually has a membership component to it. If if you already are a ClickFunnels subscriber, you can actually do membership and course type pages in there. So that's an option if you want to stay with that as well. It's not nearly, I would say, it's not nearly as design friendly as maybe some of the others, but I think that people are using them and they make them look good. So you may just have to spend a little bit more time building it to make it look what you want it to. And then you've got Kajabi, which some people use that as more of an all-in-one with their course, their email provider, landing pages, but it is a more expensive option. Thinkific, Teachable they're paid versions. I believe last time I checked were $39, $49 a month to host things. Kajabi's much more expensive than that, but they do offer email service provider, landing page creation, things like that. And it's become very popular as well. And then even Udemy is one that I don't see a lot, but I have bought some courses off of that, and so that is designed for course creators. So just think about if you want to do a course of any kind, or to even help with training some of your clients and customers, even as potential, like today, I ordered one in a free book funnel, David. I ordered the book, and then some of the bonuses were some mini courses that they put together. So even if you have a physical product, but you want to have some courses to supplement and help your customers, you could do that. So courses aren't just for content creators or authors or speakers necessarily. They could be for your physical products, and you just want to teach people about how to use it or whatever. So these are some options as well. But like I said, in all this, we've reviewed several foundational tools for online business needs, but it is imperative that you evaluate your specific needs based on your business and industry. And that beware wasting a lot of money is my last thing I want to say, because I've been there. I've wasted a lot of money, David, and I had to look at it as lessons learned along the way. But I just wanted to, kind of highlight, all these things are not necessarily needed for your business, um, but many of them are. And so you just want to be smart. You want to be wise. Real quick, as we kind of I'll jump off the slides here, but the shopping cart idea that I shared with you, you're more familiar with shopping carts, but some people might feel like they need that. What are some insights there you have?
Yeah, essentially, shopping cart allows you to create like order forms on your page. So if you want to if you just have PayPal, you can put a PayPal button on your page usually. But if you want to have an actual order form, you would either need to have a service like using ClickFunnels or something like that, where it's integrated into the funnel building, or you would need to have a service that actually has a shopping cart service. And the nice thing about using a shopping cart service is like you can put the form right on your website, or you can just link to a form that is hosted by the shopping cart provider, and they're responsible for securing all the data that way. It's like all the information. So like anytime we process credit card payments, there's a security issue, and we have all these issues of, are you protecting the data? Are you protecting people's credit card information? Are you protecting all their, name, address, and all that kind of stuff? We got to make sure that that's safe and secure, because you step into a lot of regulatory things and a lot of legal things at that point. And if you don't do it, well, then, you could be in a whole lot of hot water. So when you use one of these services, they take on that liability and responsibility. And so they manage it. They secure the transaction. They take care of processing it all and pushing it through all the necessary steps to get the payment through. And so it's a really good thing. Now, there are services out there that include shopping carts in their service. Like Infusionsoft included a shopping cart service right in the product. Now, it's more expensive that way. And since I've kind of gone a different direction here, one of the things I've discovered is you have services like Samcart, which I've heard a lot of positive things out there. So that's another one you could recommend. But I found one because I was like, I don't need like this big bells and whistles and complex thing. I just want something that'll take a payment. I just want something that'll process a transaction. And I found this service called ThriveCart. So it's THRIVE cart, ThriveCart. And it's only a one-time fee. So for just a few $100, you can get a lifetime license to ThriveCart, whereas the other ones you're paying like $100 a month or $200 a month for the shopping cart service, and you have to pay it on and on and on forever, perpetually. I think with ThriveCart, for as little as like $300 to $400, you could have a lifetime license to a shopping cart, and you're done. And so you pay it like this one time, and I think I ended up getting like the higher deluxe one that gave me a few things, so it was like maybe $500 to $600 by the time I was done. But I got like everything. I can do everything I need to do, and I'm done. I don't have to pay. I never have to pay another fee, and so it really is a good way. And I could just create order forms, have it connect directly to Stripe, put them right on my website. The payment's secure. People can enter their payment information. It all is taken care of. And it's something that you really need to seriously consider adding into your arsenal to process it. And ThriveCart was an option that really pleasantly surprised me, because we've had really good experience with it. We've gotten good support. And again, they don't charge monthly fees. So
yeah, no, that's it. And that's just it, right? I mean, I think a lot of folks, and why I thought it would be helpful to do this today is there are just so many questions. People think, I want to help somebody. I want to write a book and I want to share it, or I want to start a business doing coaching or training or consulting or whatever your thing is, or maybe you have a product that that you want to sell, even if it's if you're involved with like a network marketing business and you're just trying to get the word out there. How do I do this? And some of those companies, they kind of give you some customized web pages and things that you can automatically be built, kind of have, which is great. But there's still other components, that you still to build an email list or to figure out your social media, trying to help people. There's just various elements of this that I think are the kind of the sky's the limit in a lot of ways, but it can be easy to feel overwhelmed by all the options out there. And that's where I know I found myself And so that's why, even, like I said, even thinking through today, like up until we got on here, I was like, am I missing something? Am I trying to think back to what were the foundational things that really did matter early on? And for me, blogging was important. So I needed to have a website where I could blog and write. ClickFunnels was something that I joined in the last year or so, because I do have a book funnel now, and I do want to do some course promotions and things like that. And so that's a new thing I added, but I didn't need that for where I started necessarily either. So, folks, we just want to just give you some ideas of what to think about, because it can be overwhelming, and we understand that. And that's why this group is here. If you're just starting out or you're confused about things, ask the questions in here. People have a variety of experiences, even in some of the comments today, people were sharing that. So yeah, ask the questions in here. We'd love to help you. We've seen some good interaction up until now, and we just want to continue to invite folks in, to this group, so that we can help people. Because David, one of the things I think I get most excited about for our group, and even where business is going over the next who knows how long, right, in the online space, is that I was even just hearing a podcast today about how they were kind of tracking back the music industry, and how at one point there were 3 record companies, and then there was like ended up 2 of those held out, and then those 2 had the market for like 50 years. And then records were the thing, and then CDs became the thing, and then how digital music became the thing, and then studios started to go not even be needed, because you could create your own studio in your own basement, and all these, just the morphing of all the industry, even in the music business, um, and the disruption of being able to have all this at our fingertips. And so um, we can do great things from the comfort of our own homes, right?